Good morning, everyone. How is it going? See, we got people who are coming in. Go ahead and like the video, share the video. We got a lot of things to talk about today. And just wanted to start in and see how everyone's week has been going. We got our people in here. We got Mr. Driver, one of our organizers. We have Sonya, and we have ourselves. Mr. Driver, how's your weekend? Well, how's your week been going?
It's been going pretty awesome. Yeah, it's been going pretty awesome.
So we all former Mr. Driver. Don't come out here.
I got to put some respect on his name. He's been out here in the streets working it.
He in these streets. He like James, like James Brown said. Hey, Papa. Hey, baby.
He said, "Not today, not today."
You gonna make
how's your week started off, Sonya?
My week has started off busy. But I thank God for that. Most people would complain, but I thank God for it. I got one child who is on their way to Indianapolis.
Okay.
For a softball tournament. She's also getting ready to go to college and play in college.
Wow.
Got this 14-year-old boy over here. I'm getting ready to get started on this driving ed book.
Yes.
I can only imagine. Yeah, my son.
Mr. Driver.
See, he's still working in the community, still working with the parents. But yeah, this summer's been great. We got 4th of July weekend coming up. You know, a chance, for us, it's always been a chance to grill, chill with family, pop the fireworks, but now just listen to the fireworks with the kids, how they get excited and hope they don't blow their arm off. But this week has been a good week. Some of the things that we'll talk about today are things that have been happening in education here locally. I'll talk a little bit about a documentary that really highlighted and hopefully it propel. This is something that we can do a watch party for, but it really shows where schools started with after desegregation and how some of the powers to be, even on the school board back then, slow walk desegregation and then implemented busing, but not to the wealthy. So really look forward to discussing a little bit of that. Hey. Okay.
It's all right, Kaka. It's that pick him up. You know what he like, Daddy. Go on and do it. Go on and put that cover over his head. Hey, Tinkerbot. I gotta give me some gas money to come see you. Yeah. So John, it's that I'm interested in that. It came out yesterday?
It came out yesterday. I didn't get a chance to really see the trailer. They just talked about public schools and sitting down. What I loved about it, they really broke down the history. They had a professor from Vanderbilt who's been studying it since 2001. You had a lady who grew up in the South but taught in New York who was really studied. She actually wrote a book around the integration of Nashville public schools. And so And the good thing, we also had some of the kids who were kids at the time who parents had to walk them to school in the white mobs, actually be there and sign off on it. So it gave me chills the whole time. And I'll tell you one thing, it was a couple things that I guess his name was, let's call him Dr. Rich Milton. He posed a question. He said, how do we make sure we don't just hear the good around what's going on in the schools now? How do we keep in tune with what the kids are experiencing now? And, the first thing that came to my head, Thomas and Sonya, something that we show in our fellowship, is the danger of a single story. And in the danger of a single story, you look at it as opposite, right? You look at it as if you only hear the negative about somebody, you never get a chance to really hear the positive things that happen in those communities. And what I took from this documentary, especially as we thought about our kids, I was like, let's not hear from the people who are walking across the stage, just walking across the stage and being able to throw the hat up and be elated. But let's hear from the kids who have to watch their peers walk across the stage and how they're feeling and kind of what's next on their agenda. And so that really stood out. And then the last thing he said, we need to have a real conversation about race. And that stood out, and I wrote that down. And at the end, I asked him, but he talked more about like race around curriculum, around the inequality in schools, like being able to look at the schools, break down the school funding and see what the inequalities, but he really took a lot of time on curriculum. And I'll talk a little bit more about that within the program. But yeah, definitely want to send you guys the documentary and see what you guys think.
Yeah, sounds like a popcorn night with the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm gonna just give a quick shout out, and then Thomas, I'm gonna go to you. Just what's on your mind, just thoughts around that. But we got Mr. Big Nod, I think he put his name, Mr. John Good. We got Rhea Groves. We got Miss Joyce Gardner. We got Ivory Wilson. We got Jordan Major. So please continue to share, like the page, and let your friends know that we're on here talking about schools and education.
Yeah, shout out. Hey, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, like and share. We need to get more viewers on here. More parents need to be on here. This is our show. Access Denied is about parents and what we care the most about. We talk about the things that keep us awake at night. And so this is led by parents, for parents, uncut, raw. And we're speaking with you and to you, and we're doing this together. So like and share.
Mm-hmm.
Get parents and grandparents on here. They may have forgot. They may be on their lunch break. Their lunch break don't go over. Hey, Kaka. See, he keep distracting me.
Yep. He said he want to turn all the way around and
see what's going to hold him. But he on my voice too. Hey, Gigi. Hey, Gigi, baby. Hey, Gigi, baby. Hey, Peanut. Hey. Hey, they keeping you awake. I know. Y'all, John didn't be keeping the baby awake at night. That's why he cry in the middle of the night. He didn't get no sleep.
He done moved into our bed. He out his crib, out his bassinet. He in the bed. Yeah.
You messed up now. Look at him just looking around. We got to get the school system together for you, Kaka.
Yes, all day.
Yeah.
All day.
You know,
Right.
it's so easy to not really think about what it means to other kids, right? So even when we think about graduations, like I had to sit back and think, right? You saw all the kids walking across the stage, right? You seen everybody excited. You know, they doing the car rides around the school, and they deserve it. But one thing we got to think about when we think about our own kids, what is our kid who knows their peers about to be doing that, and they don't have that opportunity because they wasn't academically ready yet? And so even when we think about our own kids, we got to think about our kids and think about everybody, that thousands of people who have kids that just want the best. And how do we make sure they get the best education, like keeping that in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important. I mean, that sounds like they got highlighted some very good points. And speaking of graduation, I told you guys the story of when Trinity just graduated this past spring. And she looked at me and she said, Mom, not all those children really graduated. And I told her that I cried when the graduation was certified because I knew that. And it grieved me. Like at the same time, you're happy for them, right? Because it's a milestone for them. But how do you handle life when the milestone could have a tragic end? Does that make sense? Like, how do you handle that as a parent, as a community member, as a grandparent, as an educator, as clergy, as partners? Like, how do we handle the fact that we're throwing up the hats in the air and celebrating, and then they're happy, but it's also a moment that they realize that they're going into the world unprepared?
Yeah, and that's why we do what we do. But Thomas, I just want you to speak, and thank you again for coming on here. I know you've been in the community, but just talk a little bit about what you've been hearing from parents as you're doing your one-on-ones. Like, what are some of the things that they're saying? What are some of the things that it's causing you to think about and work on as you want to provide for parents who need the most support?
We talked to about, I would say, a little over 60 parents this week, and the week's not out. And one of the things that I've heard about it like over the years, but I guess with the pandemic and all, I'm hearing a lot more about children, well, not children, but high schoolers graduating. And when they get to college, they have to take remedial courses. I'm starting to wonder, why is there such a high number of high schoolers that are graduating, and they're supposed to, they should be able to go right into college and compete on a high level, and they're having to have to take so many remedial classes when they're graduating with honors and things of that nature. So for me right now, in the community, talking with the parents, that's becoming a little frustrating. So when you speak about kind of some of the kids kind of being passed on through this year, I wouldn't want to take, the traditional, graduations and things like that away from them. But as I hear more and more parents talk about their child or kids who are older than the ones who are graduating, it's like that's kind of been happening. So it's making me start to look at the priority schools a lot closer, because that doesn't make much sense for me, to me, as far as one being able to graduate so highly at their high school, but then when they get to even a 2-year college, they're having to have to take remedial classes.
I mean, let's take that a little further. The recent data that just came out, I think it was Nashville Ed Reform shared that information about we're at an all-time low of college enrollment, period. So it's one thing, like it's all encompassed, right? But I think we're starting to see the true effects of COVID-19, what it is really doing. And for those who refute learning loss and then say, the kids are okay, and, we've got to focus on their social, emotional, just imagine what it does to them emotionally, not being able to flourish in life. So it's all starting to reveal its ugly head, that now they're not even enrolling in college for whatever reason. I don't think that data said like why, but it just said that we're at a record low.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. It is.
That's
mind-boggling.
interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this here in the future, it's going to be even more interesting to see the plans to recover from the learning loss.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think right now,
You said it's interesting. It's like you have an expectation that we're getting one.
I think right now that we've had enough time during the pandemic that the school systems all across the country should have been very prepared to take this country to the next level. So that's what I mean when I say, it's going to be interesting in this near future, because school will be back here very soon. So as I talk with parent after parent after parent after parent, everyone seems to be very focused on, what's the new curriculum going to be like.
Yeah. And one thing, I'm glad you brought that up, recovering children from learning loss. There's so many components that need to be looked at. Not only is if there's quality, we need to have the quality curriculum, but we must have the high dosage tutoring during school and after school for every child. And we have the funds to do that. Also have to make sure that our educators are prepared to teach children how to read and remediate those children who are behind in literacy. So there's a whole lot of work to do. There's not a lot of time for dysfunction and excuses.
No, not at all. Not with our kids at stake. So yeah, that's why I said I don't think there's in the last 50 years, I do not believe that there has been so much being watched with education. When I talk to my neighbors, when I talk during canvassing, that seems to be the number one thing that all parents seem to be on one accord about. Mm-hmm. And that's getting the best education for their children with all of the distractions and problems and issues that one has just living in the community trying to survive.
Yeah. And it's hard, right?
Yeah,
when I think about life being hard, as we talk to parents, we realize a few things that their parents also were struggling students. For the most part, the majority of our parents, they come from our most struggling communities. And what we know is they love their children and they want their children to have a better future than they had. Jordan says, or Brooklyn says, love what y'all are doing for the community. And Darrington Dunn said, these are the conversations needed. And they are so right. Thank you, Brooklyn, for saying that you love the work that we're doing for the community. We're in these streets, and Thomas was just kind of giving a debrief of some of the things that he's hearing as a trend as he's talked to 60 parents this week. So shout out, but first of all, shout out to Thomas, shout out to the team, because it's hot outside. This is hard work, and this is hard work, and it is not for the weak. And we take the work that we do seriously.
Yeah.
This is not just collecting your phone number type work. We don't do that here. This is about building a movement of parents and grandparents and building a family. And so shout out to our organizing team. Shout out to our programming. Shout out to the whole team. Shout out to operations manager for all the hard work that everyone is doing in the community. But Brooklyn, I said that to say, join the movement. We need each and every parent, grandparent, who believes that not all children are receiving a quality education to get on board with us join the movement, find out where your place is in the movement. Everybody's got a place, everybody's got a role. And together, I just believe, like I use the words of my good friend Sarah Carpenter. She just said, I'm crazy enough to believe. And I am too. Shout out to Sarah in Memphis Left. Shout out to Charlene with Equity Alliance. I had coffee with her this morning. I want to shout out the work that they're doing in the community. They have got some amazing things going on. And it was just great to sit down with her and talk about the work they're doing, talk about the work that we're doing, and just to kind of share the like-mindedness. So shout out to Charlene for her leadership in the community. Shout out to the whole Equity Alliance team. John over there fighting with baby. Thomas, did you see the state bus going through all the school districts? Dr. Swin. Dr. Swin sat on the Great Space Coaster. That's what I called it when I saw that bus. And they rolling out in that air conditioner bus, and looked like they got some reporters on there, honey. They look like Air Force One on that darn bus. They got the commissioner and her chief of staff and everybody on there, and the media riding like they the president of the United States. But they can shout out to Dr. Swin and her team. They are visiting various school districts to, I guess, kind of look at their summer learning programs. They've seen some STEM stuff that some of the schools are doing. And I think they was reading Peter Rabbit or something I read, or Peter Cottontail, I don't know. Somebody they was reading to the children. So shout out to our commissioner for getting on the ground and going to see what's up in these classrooms, because that's needed. That's how we change the work, when we get on the ground and see what's really going on in these classrooms. I'm interested, Thomas, to see what the media is going to report about this tour. I'm hoping that they do what they do and give us, kind of shine the light on what's happening in these classrooms, because we can't see it, right?
Right. So could you break that down, like for the average parent that cares but does not know what that technically means for the commissioner to come on ground zero and go in and out of schools? Like, could you break it down to something for just the average person to comprehend what that means?
Sure, I can. I run a household. I lead my home. Commissioner runs the state education department.
Okay.
She leads that entity. She has a huge responsibility. She has a responsibility to the federal government, the state government, and to the children across the state, from East Tennessee to West Tennessee to North to South.
Oh, okay.
And so, like any parent that oversees their household, you got to be accountable. You got to go check. You can't just leave the children at home, right?
Right.
You got to stop in and check on the children and see if they following the house rules. If I told you to wash the dishes by 8, then them dishes need to be washed by 8. Thomas, you got kids. You know, if you don't check, them dishes won't be washed.
Right. Exactly.
So I hope that relates. She need to be checking on what's going on in the house. What's going on in the school. She's taking ownership. She's going to go see what's going on. Now, y'all know how children clean up and put their shit up, their stuff up under the bed. Excuse my language. They put their stuff, I got a potty mouth. They put their stuff up. You tell them to clean their room and that stuff be put up under their bed. You got to go looking under the bed. So I'm sure, don't mean no harm, they cleaned up real nice for the commissioner to come and see what was going on. I'm sure they cleaned up real nice. I wonder how many priority schools she gonna stop at.
Right. Okay.
I don't think she did. I don't. She's been to Metro. The problem is nobody comes to check on us. So Dr. Swin, if you're listening, when you gonna come see about us? 21 low performing schools with 4 of them consolidated. When are people gonna come and check on us? What about us?
Now, I have a question. If the 21 priority schools, if those schools' test scores are raised, does it count as a whole for the whole state of Tennessee? Like, how does that work as far as our education system in Tennessee as a whole? So we have 21 priority schools here. So if our 21 priority schools start to do good in the next 2 to 5 years, what does that look like? Like, how does, like, on a higher level, what does that mean? How does that, if I make sense? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you do. What I really love about this conversation is very authentic. And that's what that's what this show is about. It's about the questions that we have that people don't usually answer, that are just so over our head. So I want to walk you through that, because I'm sure there's somebody else that's listening. So the state is required by the federal government under the IDEA Act to report the status of how the schools are doing across the state of Tennessee. That is a federal law. Okay. And so the state of Tennessee developed an accountability protocol. That protocol requires the districts to report how the schools are doing based on TVAS scores, meaning how they're growing in certain areas, by race, by community. And so the priority school list is a list of schools that are performing in the bottom 5% in the state based on their TVAS scores.
Okay, now, once again, for the average parent, we're not going to.
I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to break it down.
Okay.
Let me break it down. The TVAS scores are the Tennessee Ready scores. So when your child takes Tennessee Ready, they use that data to determine proficiency for each child. That data is collected as an individual, as a school, and as a district. So the report is how the child is doing, how the school is doing, how the district is doing compared to all the other districts in the state. The data is not only broken down by individual child, but it's also broken down by race: white, Black, Hispanic, and it's also broken down by like poverty level. Those who are poverty, EL students, also broken down by students with a learning disability.
Okay.
That's what that data is. So when we talk about doing away with assessments, state assessments, you want that data. How else would you know how children are doing if you don't have that? And heads up, they are looking to change that accountability protocol. Be not
So
dismissed.
what's the difference between an assessment, and when I go to my child's school and they bring up a file, or isn't this the file where they may say, oh, well, this kid did this in third grade or fourth grade. Is that an assessment, or is the file that they keep on your child, is that an assessment?
That's an accumulation of all of the assessments and data. They call it they have it in the data warehouse is what they were having. And so now they're moving to a student dashboard where they're going to connect that information. So all of that information about your child, the notes you sent, the emails, everything from kindergarten to 12th grade right now is in somebody's file cabinet in a big old manila folder, handwritten stuff missing. Some folk ain't got no CUNY file, some of the stuff wrong. The system has changed the way that they store the information on your child so many times that there hasn't been a great focus on protecting the data for the children. So when you think about a CUNY file, is what they call it now. It is assessments. So assessments are MAP assessment, or they can be screeners for disabilities or diagnostic assessments. Assessments help you to identify what the issue is along with other pieces of information. That's why we're fighting for a personalized learning plan. It's not just about the data. It's all of the things that inform the data and putting a plan around the stuff that's in the CUNY file, the stuff that's in the student dashboard, whichever one they're going to use. All children in the district take a MAP assessment 3 times a school year, usually in the fall, the winter and the spring. And then they take a state test that tests proficiency. Like the MAP assessment tells you how they're doing, they're growing in this area, we're working on this, so you should see the improvement, right? The state test tests the knowledge base of information that they have to show whether or not they are proficient or not. So all of that information, along with what the parent says, what the child says, should be informing us to how we should address those things. So when you don't have all those things, you don't have the parent partnership, you don't have the data, which includes assessments and tests. When you don't have all of that stuff, then how do you truly address any issues for a child? That's why we are fighting for a personalized learning plan. It's helpful.
So the CUNY file, okay, so the CUNY file is not just behavior.
Right.
Okay. And the personalized learning plan assesses, it almost sounds like a biography book of your child. Is it like a bio?
The CUNY file? You said
Yes.
the CUNY, huh?
No, the difference or the intertwining between a CUNY file and a personalized learning plan is almost like a bio?
No, kind of. It's the story. It's the story, and it's the story, and then the personalized learning plan is how you want the story to end.
Yeah, and let me jump in just not to get in the weeds with parents, right? And so when we talk about priority schools, right? Some people say there's going to always be a priority school. The reason we advocate super duper hard in North Nashville, because there's some kids who go to a bottom 5% elementary, a bottom 5% middle school, and a bottom 5% high school. So their whole K through 12 education career was served in a school that is just underperforming. Now, are there kids making it out of there? definitely, but maybe it's one or two. And so that's why we have to fight. And one of the things that I wanted to do real quick, if we have time, like I got a trailer of the video when we think through the documentary that I was talking to initially, and it just talked about how the system was set up against us after they passed integration. And so give me just a minute, and then I'm gonna play this through. Let's see.
Okay, quick question. So if they're in the bottom 5% elementary, junior high, and high school, is that why some of the parents I'm talking to, is that why their child may go to college and have to take remedial classes?
Let's talk through it right after this, but that's a good question.
About educational inequality in Nashville is figuring out where to start. And I would suggest that we really need to reach back quite far.
When you look at some of these early schools in the antebellum period, there was always an
I can't hear the sound.
Student and what that could potentially mean.
There are grandchildren and great-grandchildren in the Nashville Public School system today whose parents had to do the work to try to get access to education because the systems of the state tried to keep it from them.
September 9th, 1957 is one of the most significant days in Nashville history.
I thought I belonged there with all the other kids. Other people saw it different. The children haven't had words with the public about what they went through. Some of it was hurtful, some of it was hateful. It was devastating for our parents to see.
At night, there was an explosion. We could hear it, we could feel it.
That case was the longest running school desegregation case in the nation.
They were binding together segregation in housing, segregation in schooling, and segregation in the very concept of how people understood the city.
My memory of school really began from busing for us in third grade.
I mean, I'm very old-fashioned, I guess, in a way, and I just think the secret of a successful society is just each generation is working to make things better for the next one.
I do understand that the system is resegregated. Who is going to advocate? Who is going to put that pressure? Not in a courtroom, but the table of brotherhood, you know, that Martin Luther King talked about. That's how it's going to be done. We are truly not going to let children fail.
Wow. I hadn't seen him in a long time.
Yeah.
Scientists have discovered some people have a secret bathroom habit.
Okay, cut that. So as we just think about the reason why we do this work, and we always get people coming in and joining, because we just realized there was a system set up to fail our kids. And so, you know, somebody told me one day, like, the parents got to do a better job. And whenever people say that, I always got to give a good breakdown on like what that really means. Because as parents, and you look at a documentary like this, you realize the onus is not on, the responsibility is not on the parents. The responsibility is for a system to right is wrong and set up for Black, brown, and poor kids, back in that time, Black kids, to fail. So,
well, John, I think that if it's on us, if everybody's gonna put it on us, then give us the power we need, the money we need, and the platform to change it ourselves. Give us those blank checks that y'all write.
Come on now.
Put us, in the position to be able to come up with a plan to recover children from learning loss, because we can. And let us solve our problem then. Otherwise, if you're not going to do that, then take ownership and be accountable and work with us.
And that's all we asking for. When we think about personalized learning plans, I know Thomas brought it up. It's like we want the ability, if the resources are there, if the support from the parents are there who realize that, I mean, we done heard from parents. I mean, parents have been very transparent to say, one parent told me working with Thomas, she was like, I just would put my kid on the bus, but she trusted the school system. And I think where we are now, eyes are open, ears are open to say, well, what I probably thought was happening is not happening. And again, 60s through the 80s, we had serious problems, right? So we're in the 2020. So 80 to 2000, let's say 2008, when they had to, when the rezoning and the desegregation order was ending, they had to talk to every parent in the district. And so if people think nowadays that things are just great, peachy, and super better for the future, history repeats itself. And that's just not where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can't go back to business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've been saying this, right? Mm-hmm. But I think we're at a pivotal moment here. Megan Magrum actually wrote a story about it this morning, that we have the opportunity, basically of a lifetime, to end the conversation about resources, really end the inequities.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about it, when you think about personalized learning plans, it's those who talk about equity, and they've been talking about it for years, we done gave you, as my good friend Victoria said, the secret sauce.
Mm-hmm.
The solution to the equity issue. We've given you the solution to the equity issue. Nobody else has been able to define the way to close the equity gap, and we did.
Okay, now I'm sorry to keep on, but once again, can you break down that word?
Well, what does it mean to you, Thomas?
Yeah,
what does equity mean?
Equity makes me think of equality, but if equity was equality, we wouldn't have another word for it. So there has to be a difference between equity and equality.
And let me ask people out there, because that's a good question. So you hear equality a lot, parents, and you hear equity. When you hear equity, what does equity mean to you? And we got Rhea coming in to say yes. We got Big Nod saying, they set us up for failure. So think about, let me find a good way to. So I used to,
because when you say equity makes me think about houses.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're speaking of equity in education,
what does it make you think about in houses? Now I'm gonna put you, because this is what I believe about parents. I don't believe in empowering you. I believe that you're already powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that it just has to be brought out to you. So this is not a question that you don't have an answer for. When you think about equity in a house, what do you think about equity in a house, in your house? So you think about your house.
The value, the worth.
Mm-hmm.
The value and the worth pertaining to your house, right? Because the equity in your house is going to be different than equity in my house. Because see, your house might need some repairs, right? It may need some additional things done to increase the value of your home. Same thing with education.
Mm-hmm.
My child does not look like your child. My child does not need what your child needs. My child might need less support. My child might need more support. My child needs the support that they need as an individual so that they can have equality.
Mm-hmm.
See, if I live in a zip code of low performing schools and somebody else lives in a more privileged neighborhood, yeah, you could say the equality around it is we all get to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all get to go to school, free and appropriate public education. Mm-hmm. That's what that word faith means. if you all hear fake. See, that's equality. That's why we ain't walking around talking about give me equality, because you get to go to school.
Right. Yeah.
That's equality.
Yeah, the same lunch counters.
Yeah. You get to go to school. So what you talking about? Equity is, I live over here in 37207. Every school on every corner that I turn to is low performing. Why? Why is it my school don't look like West Nashville?
Mm-hmm.
You say it's because I'm poor, I'm black. Well, give me the things that I need. If it's because I'm poor, then do the things that need to be done so that I can be on an equal or level playing ground as everybody else, because I'm just as worthy as people who live in West Nashville, South Nashville, East Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
That is what equity is. It's giving that child what they need. That's why the personalized learning plan is about that individual child, because every child, it can't be a one size fits all. Equity is not a one size fits all. Equality is, we all get to go to school.
Mm-hmm. So we got to think about, like, as our parents, like if you were driving to Memphis, if you left from your home and your wife left 2 hours before you, right? Both of y'all got a car, both of y'all are driving, but the equity in it, like, you need to have that additional time to catch up. Y'all not on the same path. She left 2 hours ahead of you. So equity is the ability to look at, how do we catch the people up who are behind, right? So if you're in the 3rd grade reading on the 5th grade, if you're in the 3rd grade reading on the 1st grade level, equity is, how do we help you catch back up to the 3rd grade, or really to the 4th grade when you make it to the next grade? Equity is, if there's one fence, right, there's a fence in your house, you may be 6'6", your cousin may be 6'1", and then your other cousin may be 5'5". The fence is the same, but the equity of it, your cousin is 5'5", needs more support than you need at 6'6".
To look over the fence. Thomas, John is 6 foot.
4.
6'4". I'm 5'5". I want to see over the fence too. I ain't gonna get no bigger.
And we don't need the same size. We don't need the same size stool. My stool, I may not even have a stool, and her stool gets her to the level I'm at to see over the fence.
I want to see the firecrackers this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Jamaica Bowen said you have that problem now with the reading situation. You know, Dorothy Scruggs, thank you, Dorothy, for jumping in. Equity means having real equal access to resources and opportunities, receiving everything our kids need to be successful across the board. Every child is unique, Maria says. They should be treated as unique. This is why we need personalized learning plans that we were promised.
That we were what? Say it one more time, Rhea, for the people in the back.
That we were promised.
That's right. I'm gonna tell you, with literacy, it's even bigger than our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Even those who have privilege, if you look at the data, they really not doing that bad, no more better, that much better. You do have a few institutions like Lager Newman, Charlie. They are doing exceptional well, and it's not being pro-charter school. I'm just telling you like it is the truth.
Yep.
The data don't lie. Their literacy methods they far surpass what is going on. Do they have some improvement to do? I'm sure they would like to improve also. Mm-hmm. But what we have is a literacy crisis across the board.
Mm-hmm. And Latia's jumping back on here. Shout out to fellowship class, Latia, class 5. I know we got some skating coming up, but the reading, like Miss Cook, and I think this is Miss Cook. I think I worked with her son at school. I think he just graduated. I think some. So if it is Miss Cook, congratulations to your son. It's from 5th grade to 12th grade, walking across that stage. But let's talk about the reading part. Like when we think about reading, right? If a parent was not taught to read when they went to school in the 90s or the early 2000s, and then they have a kid that's going through the system, One parent told me, she said, I just don't want what happened to me to happen to my son, right? And what she was saying is she gave up at the end because it was just too much for her. And so when Miss Cook says you now had that problem with the reading situation, we know that's been a problem and it's going to continue to be a problem unless we meet it head on. Like I watched Miss Cook advocate for her kid. I watched her take no for an answer. I watched her continue to challenge the staff. She had time to that day and other days. But when you look at Nashville, I tell everybody my rent was $550 in 2010. Mm-hmm. By 2019, it had ballooned to $1,500. What are parents doing? Are they focusing on providing shelter, house, and a food, and then school? Because without any of that, they ain't got the school anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to humanize this.
We have to, but we also got to have a sense of urgency. You know, we started off talking about children who are graduating, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I always say this country goes to war and they don't leave nobody. Like they can blow half your body off and they not going to leave you on somebody else's soil. Mm-hmm. But we will not teach children how to read and forget about them and say, go fend for yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's got to stop.
And you know what happens when you can't read in the classroom, TJ? When a kid gets caught on the reading, they can't read. What do you think happens? What do you think that kid does?
The kid immediately starts to. I mean, I've literally lived through that, and it. And I had a friend, and when they would call on him to read the very last time, he flipped the desk over. He, went to a rant and rave. He did basically everything possible for the teacher to tell him to get out of the class. He, and I didn't realize that until later in life.
Yep.
But that was the reason, he would do that.
Yep. Miss Cook says kids get picked on. It takes one time for me to be reading and mess up and everybody start laughing. That next time, kids not giving you a chance. They're going to act out. They're labeled. Latia says they're going to shut down. They're secluded or they act out like we know. They become disruptive. Like this is classic what we know. And so if we have kids, this is what the data says, guys, in MNPS. They don't average. So that means sometimes it's worse. But on average, kids come into the the fifth grade, 2 years behind grade level on reading. And so you find this is middle school. What happens in middle school, let's say to boys? Like my son is 12, about to be 13. What happens at 12 and 13 for little boys? What starts to happen to the place under their nose, under their arms?
They go through puberty.
Mm-hmm.
And some eating all this chicken with all these hormones in it. They go through puberty faster than that. But John, you said fifth grade, they coming in there 2 years behind. On average. And so let me give y'all a heads up. Educators, bless their heart, have not been taught how to teach children how to read. It takes a special skill set to do that, right? Like you can have all the heart in the world, all the compassion, all the love, all the want, but if you don't know how and the what needs to be done, then you really can't help children. So they have all these children that have these labels of basic reading level, and they need IEPs. They get to the fifth grade with educators also who are not elementary school teachers who teach how to decode. And so you're getting these IEPs with all these teachers that's supposed to be helping your child when they're not equipped to do so. But by the time they get to middle school, you have lost the battle if your child can't read. And I don't care how many IEPs you put around them, they're going to leave school not knowing how to read, because you don't have the curricula, you don't have the skill set, you don't have the accountability to make sure. You got federal prisons who have moved faster than the school systems, who are now realizing that those felons in those prisons, those so-called felons, don't know how to read, and they have implemented literacy programs to teach those inmates how to read, because they realized the problem. They took action quicker than even our education system. My God.
And I'm gonna tell you, if Torvis is listening, Torvis introduced me, or Chris Purtle introduced me to a brother who just got out, 17 years. And he went in when he was 17, and he just got out at 36 or 37. And he talked about learning how to read in jail. He talked about being so proud that he learned how to read that he started writing books. He self-published his own book. And so, Sonia, as you say, the prison system has done a better job. Like I seen it 2 weeks ago when we sat down with this guy. I was impressed. I was a fan, because I thought he was going to be worrying about just catching up in the world. Like, 17 years ago, the world looked different. Internet, cars, Nashville. But he was worried about, like, how do I make sure I reach those kids so they don't go through what I went through?
And I ain't saying the prison system is doing better, but I think what they've done is they're starting to be transparent. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to use their voice to say, wait a minute, these folk can't read.
Mm-hmm.
And it is most of our population. And we all know who most of their population is.
Mm-hmm.
Black folk.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't, look, if you got 60% of your school district, 60% and more, that can't read, it ain't the children.
Come on now.
It can't be. The rule of numbers tell you that. But because parents don't know any better, you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Your children don't know that it's not their fault. You've got to start fighting. You got to join the movement. If you got a child who can't read, I don't care about their learning disability. 1% of the population has like severe learning disabilities, like very severe, right? Mm-hmm. 99% of all human beings can be taught how to read. So if your child is not reading, it's a damn lie.
Mm-hmm.
They can be taught how to read. Sorry, car. But I talk to so many parents, and everybody on this call, we talk to so many parents who have children who have an IEP, and God bless them. The system has failed them. The system has betrayed them to make them think that the reason why the child can't read is because they have a disability. No. If your child has dyslexia, then you have to teach based on the science, and they can read. How many dyslexia lawyers do we know, John? It's not about their IQ.
Quite a few.
Hell, I got a disability.
Mm-hmm.
Let the truth be known.
Mm-hmm.
I have the right to be taught how to read. And so if you're listening, listen to us. Your child should not be unable to read. Period. I don't care what they tell you. It's a damn lie. I never want another parent to feel the way that I felt the moment I found out that my son was not receiving the quality education, not only that he needed, but the education he deserved as a human being. And I don't never want nobody to feel like that ever again, because he didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve to be made feel ashamed, like it's his fault. That is a scar that is so hard to heal. And I think we need to be compensated for this bullshit. We talk about reparations. Do you know how many lives have been destroyed for the sake of saving education, public education, education, period? Do we know how many lives have been destroyed for the sake of we gonna try to do right for children, by children? We care about them.
And I'll end on this, like agreeing with Sonya. Whenever I ask people what do they think the budget for MMPS is, yesterday or 2 days ago, a parent was like, $100 million for the city. She was like, nah, maybe 50. When we told her it was 1.1 billion for the year, what did she say, Thomas?
She was ecstatic. She could not believe it.
How much did she say, Thomas?
You can say it again.
You remember how much she said the school budget was?
She said 100 million. And then she said, well, the teachers are always complaining about their pay grade. So I'm going to say, no, not 100 million, maybe 50 million. And then when he said over $1 billion with a B, she couldn't believe it.
On top of all look, listen to me. I don't even know if I can spell this. The federal government across this country has written a check for trillions of. What the hell does that? I don't even know how to write that.
Trillions
of dollars to go to save public education. What the hell are we saving?
Because it ain't working.
It ain't working. Look, join the movement. Join the movement like your life depends on it, because it does. Some of y'all say, well, my children done graduated. Okay. Some of y'all might be saying, you know what? I ain't really got time. I got a lot going on. And then some of y'all might be saying, forget what I got going on. This is a matter of life and death. We're talking to all three of y'all. All three of them situations. Those who are skeptical, those who feel like you don't have time and it's not, it's just not a priority for you, and those who feel like it's life and death. We are talking to every last one of you. Because those of you who are skeptical, maybe you just need to be shown a little bit more. You need this information from Tennessee edu.gov. We ain't told you, we ain't got no reason to tell no lies. So that should end the skepticism.
Or just come outside and work with Thomas, Torvis, and the rest of the team, and just as they go to front doors and listen to how look at how parents are living in Nashville, the it city. Look at what they say their experience has been as when they were in school and what their kids are going through, and then look at the data so you can connect the visual to what the numbers really say.
Can I bring it home even more?
Yes, ma'am.
Look at your paycheck. And if you got it going on, you making $80,000+. Hell, I ain't. 80 plus, because it's gonna take you to have like just a regular standard life here in Nashville, about $80,000. They say. I think it's gonna take more than that. Because by the time insurance and stuff come out, then you really don't bring home $80,000. So if you making 80,000 plus, you are right. But you know what? Come hope the rest of us.
Yep. And I know we're a little bit over. I want to first give a shout out to Carson. The whole time been cutting up, and now he done fell asleep on me. Boy, Lil John had to come in and save me. He rang that doorbell. I jumped up so fast, and yeah, now he out. But yeah, these are the things. Be on the lookout. Miss Cook will be reaching out to you. Big Nod and John Good. It was an honor talking to you guys last week as we gear up for the things we got coming up. And just be sure to tune us out, share this out, continue to share it out, like our page, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
All right, thanks.